Self-care and self-awareness are the most important things that I think anybody can focus on right now. I'm sure that partially has to do with the energy that's been absolutely insane. And so, like, if I were to blanket anything for this next few weeks, I'm going to say definitely self-awareness is going to be like hyper paramount, like the most important thing you can focus on over the next couple weeks. And I would go back, if you haven't already listened to what I had channeled about the Venus retrograde, maybe re-listen to that, because a lot of the really good astrologers are going beyond what we know as astrology, and they're talking about things happening in the Kuiper belt and things happening in the greater cosmos and asteroids that are causing frequency issues now, and like all of these different things that wasn't even spoken about years ago. Something else was going on in the world, and I kind of feel like that's what we have to get, like that's kind of what this is about, this first card, where it's talking about like there's no competition. Like I feel like if we can take the idea of there's no competition and bring it into that bigger thing, like if you were where I am the last few days, you wouldn't even know anything was wrong, because that's not where the focus is. Right now, all of the media wants to keep us on that focus because they want to pull us into that drama. So be aware again, and you're going to get it from other people. Like this is another thing, when you start putting up those kind of boundaries, one of the things that will happen is people around you are going to be like, I can't believe you're so cold-hearted. You don't even care about any of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's hard because they don't understand it. But then this is where you have to be the bigger person, because you know what they don't know, and they're not awakened to it, and they are not going to understand it. Right? So you have to pick your battles. Is this something where you need to explain to them what's going on, or do you need to just let them be angry and let it roll off your back? Because it really doesn't have anything to do with you. Do you know what I mean? That's the same in relationships with other people. When you first start learning your own boundaries, it's the same exact experience. When you're setting boundaries within your own family and you've never maybe set them before, they're going to be vicious, right? It's the same thing with the collective. When you start setting boundaries and saying, no, I'm not going to play in that game, they're like, well, what the hell's wrong with you? Why aren't you even caring about any of it? And this is where the dimensionality comes in. So I feel like that's a perfect segue to get us into talking about 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, and on up. So really, love is the truth. And so the 4D is kind of the beginning of the awakening, I feel like. 5D is when you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I'm operating in this different space. And it's almost like you're a little bit removed from what's going on, even though you're still in 3D reality. 5D is like, okay, but I see how they're feeling that way. I don't have to get pulled into it. You start learning, stronger boundaries, better boundaries. You start learning about the higher dimensions. You start understanding how to understand guides and angels. You may have way more angel numbers. Anytime that happens, one thing I've noticed is it's the next big thing is going to happen. And so we're getting, okay, here, we're giving you some reinforcement. We're here with you. It's going to be okay. Here's some angel numbers. I have been getting them consistently for the last like 3 weeks. Just, I mean, ridiculous amounts. It's ridiculous how many angel numbers I've been seeing. But then as we move in beyond that 5D, this is where you start like creating a spiritual practice, and you're getting stronger with it. Like you probably started creating your spiritual practice in 4D, right? But then in 5D, you're like, okay, I get this. Like I can connect to my angels, my guides. I understand what's going on. I see the power of manifestation. I see the power of journaling, all of those things. Well, then you start moving up to the next frequencies, right? Now, 6D, of course, we kind of always skip for some reason. It goes from 3D to 5D. We skip the ones that are in between, but it's not like we skip them. We have to go through them. It's just that those are the transitional process. And as we move into 7D, it's a higher frequency yet. It's a more clean energy. And it's really like being removed from what's happening. Even though you see it happening, you're actually in a different density. And what I feel like my guides are saying is, if you think about back in the day, like I was raised where it was black and white TV and we had rabbit ears, and sometimes we would put the foil on because it wouldn't even come in, right? And you had to change the dial on the TV. You couldn't like just use the clicker, right? So that would have been like, okay, that made sense in 3D. And then, oh my gosh, now we have, instead of 2 channels or 3 channels, now we have like 9, right? So we have still a black and white TV, but there's more channels. But then all of a sudden, guess what? Now there's color TV. Holy crap. It's color TV, right? And then it became not only color TV, but now you don't need the rabbit ears anymore. There's this cable that's giving you all of this high-tech energy coming through the TV, and then you get the clicker. And then we went to 3D TV where you had to wear the goggles. I don't know if anybody had that. We had one of those 3D TVs where you could wear the goggles at home and you put those on, and it was like, oh my God, now things are coming out of the TV, right? Well, now the technology is you get the 3D experience without even having to have a 3D TV. Like you don't have to wear the goggles anymore. It's a similar kind of thing with what we're doing and waking up. And what my guides are saying on top of that is not only is it that we've gone from black and white TV to now this color TV that literally looks like there's dimensionality within the TV and not even having to wear the glasses, but some of us has already done this before. So like not only is it, we're like, oh yeah, of course, this is what it is, right? So it's even a higher understanding of it, but because we've done it before, we're seeing things that we didn't see the first time. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever watched a movie and then you watch it again and you're like, oh my God, I totally missed that. We did that here, just walking up and down the street. I'm like, I totally missed that when we were walking that the other day. And now we see it, right? Like the more you do this, the more you actually see. And so I feel like that's also part of what some of us are experiencing within this. Like, okay, we've already been around the block. We've incarnated here once before, but now we're incarnating again. And maybe we did reach higher dimensions, but now we're seeing it from a whole new way because our eyes, like we're catching things we didn't see the first time around. So there's this whole weird dynamic, and it's a lot. You guys, it's a lot, which is why we have to come back to self-awareness, self-care, and not trying to compete. We talk about 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D as dimensions. But my guides are saying not only is it multidimensional, right? Because we've been talking about multidimensionality a lot. So not only is it multidimensional, but it's also different densities. So we could be in 3D reality, but be operating from a different density, which would be like a different channel on the same TV, right? So we've got all of these things happening at once, and it is a lot to take in. Important about understanding about how to bring those aspects into alignment and in congruency. That's the word my guides keep saying, is congruency, right? So we've already worked about getting our heart and our head in congruency, and now let's get our soul on board. Let's get all of ourselves, including our higher self, our soul self, our understanding of the divine, in congruency. And when you do that, there's no, it's like, of course it is love. Like there is nothing else.